Hello and welcome to this special episode of Page One, where we're speaking with one of our returning guests about their latest book. If you're just joining us for the first time on Page One, we like to speak to writers of all kinds about their writing journeys, find out how they got into the industry and try and get as many hints and tips from them as possible. But as I say, this week we have a guest that's been on before, back in April 2021. I just checked that. Um,
Well,
so it was a fair while ago. So much will have happened since then. So we are delighted to welcome back David Bishop. So hi David.
Hi, thank you for having me back. I hadn't realized it was quite so long ago.
no, I hadn't realized either. That was because at that point you had just had your first book out. City of Vengeance must have been just out or about to come out, I think, the first time we chatted to you. Is that right?
21, yes. No, that would have come out about a month or two just before that. So that
Wow.
was sort of the beginning of the journey for the Aldo series, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, remarkable. Yeah, I remember you were talking about writing, I think, The Darkest Sin possibly at that point, or maybe it was The Ritual of Fire, I'm not sure, but we were chatting about the next book. So yeah, it has been some time. So I suppose a good place to start then is how has it been? Obviously the Cesare Aldo series has been a huge success. How have you found that?
Yeah, it's I mean the first one came out February 2021, so that was the lockdown number two. All the bookshops were shut. And nobody knew if books being published during lockdown whether they would prosper or fail. A lot of publishers were like, "Oh no, we won't punish you if you don't sell because of lockdown. We perfectly understand." And that may have been the case for some publishers, but not for all publishers. I think say one thing, not necessarily. But I mean, Pan Macmillan have been very good to me. He said, I'm in no position to complain whatsoever. So yeah, so I guess the last time we talked, it was April 21. City of Vengeance would have just come out. I would have just handed in book two, which was The Darkest Sin, the second book in the series, and probably was just about, I guess, had I even started writing book three? I'm not sure that I had. I think I didn't have a new contract at that point. I didn't get another contract for books three and four in the series until, gosh, maybe September 2021. So yeah, that was all in the future. So at this point, yeah, it was very early on. City of Vengeance had just come out, seemed to be doing all right, but it was very hard to tell. There were no actual sales figures available
Mhm.
because of lockdown, which did all sorts of weird things to the publishing industry. But since then, I mean, it's nearly, what month are we in? Is it June?
Yeah,
I've really lost track of
just
this
June.
year, I
Yeah,
have
yeah.
to say. Yeah, so it's 4 years later. The fifth book in this series, Carnival of Lies, holds up a copy.
Nice.
It will comes out in a few weeks' time at the time of recording, the 26th of June. So it's the fifth book in the series. I'm just about to write the last act of the sixth book in the series. I'm not allowed to tell you what the name of that is yet because it hasn't been announced or confirmed. But yeah, it's been going very well actually. I have to say, I consider myself very fortunate.
Nice.
And yeah, I mean Cesare Aldo, you've now got even I think you've got your podcast, the Aldo Cast as well. So it's developed enough of a following that the character is very well known. I think in especially in sort of historical sort of thriller circles, and obviously you've won awards and stuff like that. I mean, it has been, uh, you've really developed this character, and you're well known for writing these historical thrillers set in Italy. The latest one, as you said, is Carnival of Lies. Do you want to give us the pitch for that one?
Absolutely. So, Carnival of Lies. Essentially, the short pitch is Mission Impossible meets Ocean's 11 in Renaissance Venice.
It's a good
Brilliant.
pitch.
That's fantastic. I'm in. That's brilliant.
Essentially, that's it in about 10 words, I think. The slightly longer version is my character Cesare Aldo. Um, is essentially somebody has stolen a vital journal which contains secrets of the city of Florence, where he's from, and his job is to recover that from the rival city state of Venice. And if he doesn't bring it back or destroy it, he'll be banished from his beloved Florence and all the people he cares about. So it's a do or die mission for him, essentially. But he's going to a city where he has n- no friends, plenty of enemies, where it's set during Carnival, obviously, in February 1539 by their calendar. So as a consequence, everybody's wearing masks, everybody's pretending to be who they're not. Lies come with the territory. He's an enemy city-state, and he could die at any moment. So it really is, if he's captured or arrested, then Florence will deny, the city of Florence will deny having sent him. So it really is mission impossible for him. They will disavow all knowledge of him, and he will suffer a gruesome fate.
Brilliant. That sounds fantastic. I have to say, I feel there's a real lack of heist novels in the crime world. It's a genre that I don't think we see enough of, those kind of heist type thrilling novels, which is they're big on films and stuff, but I feel there's not enough in books. So I'm very glad to hear that's the story of this one.
Yeah, I mean, each book in the Aldo series I deliberately write in a different subgenre. So the first one, City of Vengeance, was a conspiracy thriller. Darker Sin was a closed circle mystery in a convent. A Ritual of Fire was vendetta killings, and everybody was being burned alive. That was the methodology. So if I can't change the subgenre, I'll change the way people die, just to keep myself amused, really. Number 4 is A Divine Fury, and that is serial killers, religious serial killers with exorcisms thrown into the mix just for good measure. Always wanted to write an exorcist book. And then this one is, it's heist, espionage, stealth 'em up kind of story. So yes. And then the one I'm writing at the moment, which is next year's book, is it's set in an asylum. So
Nice.
which is snowbound. So essentially it's sort of And Then There Were None meets Shutter Island.
Brilliant.
Nice.
That sounds very
Excellent.
cool. Yeah.
Excellent.
Excellent comps. I'm liking all that.
Yeah, very good. And you have, as I said before, you've developed Cesare Aldo into the protagonist, and you've got this series now of books. I mean, how have you found writing those, and how do you keep them fresh? I mean, I think maybe you partly explained that last bit there. You sort of pick a different type of story to tell with them each time.
Yeah, I mean, it is the challenge of writing a series. You have to think about how you are going to challenge your central character. What are you going to do that's going to see them facing a different threat, a different kind of antagonist or force of antagonism? How do you develop a character? When we first meet Aldo in City of Vengeance, he's already a mature character. He's nearly 40 at that point. He's been doing his job for a while. So he's a detective in Renaissance Florence, essentially, in the first few books. And so as a consequence, one of the things you can do is you can reach into a character's backstory and you find out more about their past, what made them the way they are now. So although the character doesn't necessarily fundamentally change, the reader's understanding of the character evolves book by book. The other thing I do is I have a growing ensemble of supporting characters that get added to with each book. Some characters are brought back. So there's book 4, Divine Fury, introduced a character called the Contessa Valentine Coltello, who was Venice's spy master in Florence. And she's a very dangerous woman, I think would be the polite way to describe it, and also very mischievous. So Aldo meets her. Now, Aldo is a gay man at a time and place in history where that's punishable by death. And yet when he meets the Contessa, he finds himself, he can't really understand why, but he seems to be attracted to her, which goes against everything he understands about himself. So it's another way of challenging him as a character. And so essentially the Contessa has become his new frenemy. So she looms large in Carnival of Lies because both of them are in Venice at the same time and are sort of reluctantly forced to team up. But Aldo never knows how far he can trust the Contessa. As long as he's useful to her, she'll keep him alive. But if he stops being useful, then she's quite willing to, cast you aside, or worse, as the case may be. So yeah, digging more into the character and then adding to the supporting cast as well.
Well, I was going to ask about the supporting cast. Does that mean, by building up a supporting cast as well, does it give you the opportunity perhaps in the future to write a Contessa novel without Cesare Aldo in it at all, potentially?
You've seen my secret plan, haven't you? My not so secret plan. Yeah, once I finish book 6, which is due in, I think, the first week of July to Pan Macmillan, then I'm out of contract. I've been on a series of rolling 2-book contracts. And you never know. whether you're going to get another contract, where the publisher is going to be excited to want more from you. I mean, you hope so. Your fingers are crossed. You hope that sales justify it, and any awards attention that you may have accumulated may help to persuade them. Oh, yes, we'll have some more of that, please. So my plan after I finish book 6 for next year's book is to be a Contessa standalone, a
Cool.
spin-off, but effectively a standalone. Because the one of the difficulties you have with a series, the great thing about a series is, as I say, you can build up this ensemble of characters. It really helps with reader loyalty. People, if they enjoy one Aldo book, they know there's another one's coming. That's great. And if people get into the series, they go back to the start and read their way through, which is brilliant. The downside of a series, of course, is that it's not very often you see a series shift from one publisher to another. Unless you're, I don't know, Stuart McBride and you're selling by the truckload, in which case then publishers are quite happy to do the dirty and headhunt an author from a different publisher. I'm not in the Stuart McBride territory, lovely as that would be, but not yet. Not yet. Let's put it that way. So as a consequence, I think it would be hard to shift Aldo to another publisher, even if I wanted to, and I'm really happy with Pan Macmillan. But if I write the Contessa novel, and if Pan Macmillan, because they get first right of refusal, if they're not, if it doesn't make their socks roll up and down, then there's the capacity to take the Contessa book to another publisher if needs be. Hopefully I get to stay with Pan Macmillan.
How would that work, though? Would you need to keep the Contessa book completely, separate from the Cesare Aldo book, even though she's appeared in the Cesare Aldo books? Like, could Cesare appear in those books even if it was a different publisher?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know. I mean, legally, the terms of my contract are, after I conclude my current contract, Pan Macmillan gets first look at my next crime novel.
Right.
So that's how that works. That's the contractual obligation part. And I own the characters. They're my characters. So theoretically, I could take Aldo elsewhere if I wanted. But I mean, I think I would want certainly the first Contessa novel to be standalone as much as possible, so that you don't have to have read any Aldo novels and you could enjoy the Contessa novel on its own merits.
Yeah.
So because the other downside of a series is you get to a point where there's too many books in a series, and then as a reader, you're reluctant to go, well, I'm not going to read 20 novels, for goodness sake.
Yeah,
definitely.
I mean, I remember when everybody kept saying how good the Mick Herron Slow Horses books were, and he kept winning all these prizes. You think, they can't be that good, can they? You always have this anti-hype thing going on, which is just stupid contrarianism on my part, frankly. You think they can't be that good. Same with M.W. Craven again. They can't be that good. I thought, well, maybe I'll just read the first one, and you go, oh no, they are that good. Oh, okay. That explained why everybody was like,
that explains why they're bestsellers. Who would have thought?
And why they win all these awards and sell all these books. Oh, because they're actually good. Oh, I see. Cool. So yeah. But you do reach a point where you think, well, how many of them do I have to read to get up to speed here?
Yeah.
How much of this? So that is a challenge. Once a series gets past a certain point, sort of the weight of the backlist becomes almost too much. And also for bookshops, they're not going to stack, they're not going to stop 20 every single book in a series. They might have the first book and the last couple, but they're probably not going to stack unless the books keep selling and selling, in which case, they'll have them all, of course. If it sells, if it's a nice evergreen title, they'll keep stocking it because they know it keeps selling. But there's a law of diminishing returns, I think, for a series. You also have to be conscious of. So,
yeah, I think that's so true. I remember starting to get into the Bosch books by Michael Connolly, and there must be 20 odd, but he's running. There's tons, and I got the first 5 or 6, and I was enjoying them, but I was in the back of my mind, it was always like, are you actually going to work your way through another 18 of these books? And there's so much stuff to read, and I was like, actually, I don't know if I do want to do that. It does put you off.
Yeah, it's like TV series as well, though. If you're late to a TV series, and
everyone's always like, The Good Wife's amazing. And
7
I'm like,
series.
God, 7 seasons of 26 episodes. That's a lot of time to work through it, and I just don't have the time.
Yeah, I mean, skip season 5 is my advice. But yeah, 1 to 4 is great. 5 really went off the rails. Or is it 6? There's one where she's running for office, and it's like, it's not that they jumped the shark, you just forgot what the premise of the show
Okay,
was.
Yeah,
right, okay,
yeah,
well,
yeah.
okay, okay, I will give it a try. I will give it a try at some point. But yeah,
Which is a
it's
shame
psychological.
because Alan Cummings is her campaign manager, and Alan
That's
Cummings
right.
is
He's meant to be
brilliant
brilliant
at
in it.
anything.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, it slightly lost the guts of the show. Slightly got left behind. So it's tricky. It's like I think season 5 particularly is a problem. It's like season 5 of The West Wing notoriously has got 2 good
Yes,
episodes in it.
that's a tough season when they can transition between the Sorkins leaving and the new showrunners. That's
And the
the
John Wells.
yeah.
Basically, just watch The Supremes with Glenn Close. It's an amazing episode, and you can pretty much skip the rest of the whole season.
I wanted to ask a little bit about the award chat because, as Marco said, obviously your books have had a lot of really good recognition. They've you won the Historical Dagger at the Crime Writers Association Awards with book 2, the Darkest Sin, and A Divine Fury book 4 is up for 2 daggers this year, which is fantastic. Up for the historical one again, and the gold one, which is the big best crime book of the year, which is amazing. I mean, how does that feel to see these books be seen this kind of recognition?
I'm not going to lie, it's good. What was I going to say? Oh, I hate it. Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah, that should be great.
Yeah, this is where you say you can't judge art with awards and all this sort of stuff.
Oh yeah.
Well,
They're
which
meaningless.
is all true. Yeah. And I'm sure in a few years' time, when the spotlight had moved on to new, more exciting writers, I'll be sitting there grumbling, going, "I remember when I was." But yeah, I mean, if somebody wants to throw a spotlight on me, I'm like, yeah, fine. I am a screaming extrovert, so there's that to deal with for a start. But I think the Darkest Sin, when that won the Historical Dagger, that really, I think that Pan Macmillan were like, oh, okay, we're onto something here, because they were selling fine, but not gangbusters numbers, and I think that really helped to get the second contract and sort of, extend the life of the series. So I was very happy and very grateful for that. I got to say, I am gobsmacked that Divine Fury's up for the Gold Dagger. I thought maybe the Historical Dagger, but the Gold Dagger, I'm like, blimey, right? I mean, that's the people who've won the Gold Dagger it's an absolute who's who of crime writing from around the world. Van Demmett and Ann Cleves and Ian Rankin and Michael Robotham and James Lee Burke and Chris Whitaker and these amazing writers have won it. You think, gosh, and I'm in the running for this, honestly. It's one of the things I struggle with. Like I say, I'm a screaming extrovert, but I struggle to take a compliment. I've had to train myself to accept compliments when people say how much they enjoy the book, because I'm from New Zealand originally, and there's a culture of not getting above yourself. The tall poppy syndrome. Nobody likes to try hard, all those sorts of things. So when somebody says a nice thing about my book, or I'm up for a prize, I have to go, thank you very much. That's very kind. I really appreciate it. And inside, I'm just absolutely cringing and dying because just like, but the good thing about prizes is if it brings attention to the books, if there's readers who might pick up the books as a consequence, then brilliant, because that's what they're for, really. It's to encourage readers to try something they maybe haven't tried before. It doesn't hurt that my name happens to be first in the alphabet for the when they're listing them. So on the Waterstones website, they've got, click through to see who's been shortlisted for the daggers, and the first one that appears is A Divine Fury by me, and I'm like, nice. So glad my name isn't Zachary Ziz, because that would have been really depressing.
I was speaking to another author actually recently, and they were talking about writing something else and pen names, and they were saying, yeah, I need to pick a pen name that is sort of in the middle of the alphabet, so I'll be in the middle of the shelf. And I was like, oh yeah, I never really thought about these things, but yeah.
Oh, completely. Was it Mo Hader who because that wasn't Mo's real name, and they picked Mo Hader because H is generally at eye level on the shelf, apparently.
I would never even thought about that.
When I walk into a bookshop, I just look for Mark Billingham, because they'll always have at least 4 or 5 Mark Billingham books will be there.
Then the Bishops.
Being Bishop, I'll be just after Billingham. I'll usually be on the same shelf or one shelf down. So I just search out for Mark Billingham because he's always going to be there.
Yeah, I mean, that's the next best thing, right? If you can't be right in the middle of the shelf, be next to a big author whose people's eyes will be going to anyway. So you're always going to be.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm thinking of, if I ever start writing horror, my pen name will be Stephanie King.
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
if I write a series about girl wizards, no, maybe not that. But yeah, yes,
What sort of, when the Darkest Sin won the award, you said that it helped you kind of get another contract. But what kind of impact did that have on sales? Did you see like an uptick in attention from the buyers?
I think so. Yeah, it certainly helped with that moment of recognition helped get my first international rights deal for the
Okay.
series. Because historical fiction can do quite well, but sometimes, depending upon the length of the book, it doesn't necessarily translate into every market. Like Germans love police procedurals, but they tend to go less for historical books because they like shorter books, I'm told.
Okay.
So yeah, I always live in hope that I'll get translated into Italian, but it hasn't happened yet. Equally, if you want your books to be picked up by American publishers, then seemingly set your books in America doesn't hurt with that. So there's those elements to think about. But yeah, I think it's helped. It makes it just adds to the metadata, I guess, if we're going to be crass about it. It makes people think, oh, okay, this is one of the prize, therefore maybe it's worth me having to go with this. But yeah, I mean, I think the long with any career, there's sort of like you're either the skyrocket or you're the slow burn is the two approaches, and often that's defined by the contract that you get. If you get a 6-figure deal for your first couple of books from your publisher, then they're going to have to spend some money marketing you.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. They need to try and get their money back somehow. So they're going to spend more money in order to sell more books in order to get their money. It doesn't always work. And there's plenty of examples of books that had a 6-figure deal, which then sunk without trace because wrong book, wrong time.
Yeah.
And that's the nature of the beast. But that's the skyrocket. The alternative is the slow burn where you try and build a readership over time, book by book, and either the character becomes the brand or the author becomes the brand, sort of becomes that sort of, if not a badge of quality, at least a badge of that this is the sort of book you're buying. If you buy a new TV Bishop, it's going to be this kind of thing. And if you enjoy that kind of thing, then good news, there's another one coming along soon. And word of mouth, reader word of mouth, I think is hugely important still. So yeah.
Nice.
Excellent. Well, we got you on to speak about Carnival of Lies, but also to let us know about 5 books that influenced. I don't know. We give our guests a choice. Is it 5 books that influenced Carnival of Lies, or 5 books that influenced you as a writer generally?
I've mostly gone Carnival of Lies, but I've got a couple in my 5 that have a longer sort of tail in terms of my development as a writer.
Great.
Absolutely.
Excellent. So I'm going to make you rank them because I'm cruel. So so we'll get straight into it, and we'll start with your number 5.
Okay. I'm guessing number 1 is top, right? I'm not being
Yes.
Yeah.
just checking. I've watched enough, Top of the Pops on BBC4 that number 1 seems best. Okay. I'm going to start at number 5. Then I'm going to start with this. So this is selected letters by a guy called God, what was his name? Pietro Aretino. Now, you may have never heard of Pietro Aretino, so I'm going to tell you who he was. When Venice was the epicenter of the Renaissance, Pietro Aretino was its gossip columnist, trendsetter, and political diarist. So, this guy's kind of notorious amongst historians and also celebrated at the same time. He wrote letters to everybody. It's one of the things he was most famous for. This is sort of a selection of his letters. He used to write letters and send them to famous people. So there's lots of letters from him that he sent to Henry VIII, for example. If you look at the Tudor archives, they've got a load of letters from Pietro Aretino. So essentially, he was like a gossip columnist, letter writer, correspondent. He's most notorious, perhaps, for the fact that he wrote 16 sonnets describing a series of erotic carvings that somebody had made, which got him. He was in Rome at the time. It got him banished from Rome by the Pope not once but twice, because they were so saucy, essentially. And chastened by this, he then wrote like histories of the saints and all sorts of things. But basically, he was a jobbing writer in Renaissance Venice, and he's a character in. He appears in Carnival of Lies.
Okay.
He becomes an ally for Aldo in the course of the book. He's great mates with the Contessa because he enjoys a good bacchanal, and so does the Contessa, frankly. So Pietro Aretino appears in Carnival of Lies, and it was great because these are his letters as written by him and sent to various people. Aretino was a bit of a scamper, it has to be said. So he published this first volume of his collected letters, and then it sold so well. It was like his best-selling book at the time. He thought, oh, I should do a second volume. I could make more money. This would be great. So he started writing letters, most of which he never sent to anybody. He was just writing letters to go into the book.
That's a cheat.
It's such a cheat. It's the equivalent. I know a lot of comics artists, and they will publish a sketchbook, but for a lot of them, they don't have time to sketch. They're too busy working. So if they do a sketchbook, they actually have to draw sketches specifically for the sketchbook, when a sketchbook is meant to be just a collection of your sketches from over.
But also, if he actually was sending the letters in the first book, how's he got the letters to publish?
Well,
Did he keep a copy of them? So he wrote 2 copies of it. Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah. Well, they don't have carbon paper yet. So yeah, he does.
Of course.
But yeah, so he was writing multiple copies. He'd have multiple drafts of everything.
I suppose so. Yeah.
So he lived in a palazzo which was owned by a bishop from the church, not a bishop like me, and it was on the Grand Canal, so he could look out across at the Rialto markets, and he would have these lavish parties. Aretino also was very enthusiastic. People would come to stay, and he would just feed them off his own bat. There's a great story about a bunch of German tourists who got lost and ended up in his palazzo. So he just put them up for 2 weeks because he was just a nice guy. And after the events of Carnival of Lies, the Holy Roman Emperor Charles V of Spain was passing by Venice. So Aretino volunteered to be one of the people to go and meet him and talk to him. And he ended up being best mates with the Holy Roman Emperor. I mean, he's just this mad character. I absolutely love him. He's brilliant. So he was great fun to write into the book. So the first one is Aretino Selected Letters. So that's number 5.
Fantastic. Right. And what is your number 4?
Oh. Okay, all right. So this is Refuse to Be Done by Matt Bell. And this is the subtitle of this is How to Write and Rewrite a Novel in 3 Drafts.
Okay.
Nice.
And the reason I came up with it's published by Soho Press in America. And it's basically it's only 150 pages long. It's a really easy read, but it takes you through the writing process. Now, there's a lot of books about the writing process, about how you write a first draft, structure, plotting, planning. There's a gazillion books about structure and screenwriting, for example. But you very rarely find a how-to book that actually deals with, okay, you've written a first draft. How do you make it good? You finished it. I mean, brilliant that you finished a first draft, but how on earth do you make it a better version of that? And so he takes you through. So the first half of the book is writing your first draft and exercises and tips on how to do this. And then the back end of the book is how you write a second draft, and then how you write a third draft of your book to make it the best version of itself. It can be before you going out to agents, or before it goes to editors, or before anybody else sees it effectively. So I stumbled upon this a year or 2 ago because I run the various creative writing programs at Edinburgh and Napier University in Scotland, one of which is an online version called it's MA Writing Genre Fiction. And we were doing one of the modules in that is about the editorial process and how you work with editors and how you edit your own work or how you edit other people's work. And I was struggling to find a good book about the editorial process. And then I found Refuse to Be Done by Matt Bell. And honestly, we've made it required reading for the students in our program.
Oh, nice. Okay.
It's just got really easy to read, just lots of great wisdom and specific tasks and techniques of how you take your first draft and make it into a better second draft. So this actually helped when I was writing Carnival of Lies, and actually more so the one before, Divine Fury, because I had a bit of a grapple with that book for all sorts of reasons, but this helped to sort of unscramble my thinking for the book. So this one was really helpful. So that's number 4, Refuse to Be Done, Matt Bell.
That does sound good. I think I'll grab a copy of
Yeah, I
that.
like that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is. I highly recommend it, and I keep pimping it out to everybody. I should get a commission, frankly, at this stage. We've sold that many copies for him. Okay,
Excellent. Number 3.
number 3. Ooh. Okay, all right. I'm going to go with The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli.
Yeah.
Couldn't not mention The Prince. Every Cesare Aldo novel opens with an epigram, an excerpt from The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli. Now, for people who don't know, Machiavelli, how does anybody not know about him? All right. So he was a bureaucrat, a civil servant in Renaissance Florence, and he did a lot of writing, and essentially he observed how people attained power and how they kept power. And so he wrote this tiny, it's really short, it's all of 150 pages long, this little guidebook to how you get and hold on to power, how you stab your way to the top, and how you stay there by stabbing anybody who has a go at you. So it's sort of this and The Art of War by Sun Tzu are the two great strategy books that have endured through the centuries. So yeah, there's lots of snarky wisdom in this, but if you want to succeed in Westminster or Washington or any other capital city, then chances are at some point you will read The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli. And the Aldo books are full of very Machiavellian characters who are perpetually manipulating events and doing the dirty to other people in order to retain power. So Aldo has a good working knowledge of the sort of things that have been that people use the Prince as their advice for. Ironically, the book really only came to prominence. I mean, it was published posthumously, and even then, it didn't really catch on for another couple of centuries. But nonetheless, it really captures the flavor of the Renaissance and Renaissance Italy. So this was essential for my thinking. And every time, as I'm preparing to write a new Aldo, one of my first jobs is to find the perfect quote from the Prince that captures the essence of the book. So for Carnival of Lies, I can't remember it off the top of my head, but the quote is, "It is better to be adventurous than cautious, because fortune is a woman." Because Aldo was very much living by his wits and relying on good luck, and also relying on the Contessa to bail him out in this book. So once I find the perfect Machiavelli quote from the Prince, I find it a lot easier to write the novel, which seems mad because it's like all of a sudden long.
Yeah.
But it captures the essence of what the book is about.
Yeah.
Or one of the things we talk about on our program is the idea of having a thematic argument, a handful of sentences that really capture the different strands of the story you're trying to tell. The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli is really helpful for that. So that's my number 3.
Fantastic.
Excellent.
And let's hear what your number 2 book is.
Oh,
Getting close.
Okay, all right. I think I'm gonna go with Venice's Secret Service, organizing intelligence in the Renaissance. I'm not going to try and say this person's name because, feel free to have a go if your grasp of their name.
Jordanu or something. Yeah, Romanian, is it? Yeah.
Sure.
I'm
going to pass on that one.
Yeah.
They are. They're reader in human resource management at Oxford Brookes University.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah. And also, they work at the University of Warwick in the Centre for the Study of the Renaissance. Anyway, the book is about Venice's Secret Service. Venice was the first. Lots of people had spies at this point in history. The wonderful Giordano Bruno series by S.J. Paris, and indeed the new S.J. Paris, His Legacy, is about spies and people like Walsingham and the Elizabethan age. So there were spies in all sorts of city-states and countries around Europe during the Renaissance, but they were spies and secret agents, as we would call them now, who responded to one person, to the king or the duke or the queen, whoever it was, or a spy master. In Venice, they had an entire bureaucracy built up to run their spies. They had spies in different cities. traveling merchant spied on behalf of Venice, and Venice had something called the Council of Ten. So this was essentially, like it sounds, it was like a bureaucracy. And so the Council of Ten were in charge, and they directed the spies. So this vast empire, they had ciphers, they had a secret vault, they kept all the secret archive, they kept all the encrypted messages they received. So it's a fascinating book that really digs into how the Secret Service and spies and spycraft operated in Venice in this period in history. And that was one of the keys for writing Carnival of Lies.
Yeah,
Nice.
I can see how it would be. I went to, I've done the tour at the Doge's Palace, and yeah, there was the room where the archives, they would get the secrets written down by people, I think, that couldn't read. I think it was, but they would just copy the text in front of them, so they couldn't understand what they were being given,
that's quite
essentially.
clever.
So that they could keep the secrets.
I think it was the guards who couldn't. They had all the people who were on guards. None of them could read. And they had all these decryptors in their job, and they changed their ciphers every few weeks or every few months because they kept getting intercepted. So it's a really elaborate system of spycraft they were operating.
That's cool.
And I just found it fascinating. And honestly, if I could have put more of that into Carnival of Lies, I would have done. But there's a limit to sort of like, it's the classic thing. You discover all these amazing nuggets in your research, and then you're like, it just doesn't fit into the book.
Exactly. Yeah,
but it's all there for another point on their time or something, isn't it? So
absolutely. So you stick it in your historical note at the back and point people at. If you want to know more about the spycraft, go read this. So Venice Secret Service is a classic example of that. You don't want to write one of those books where it's, I suffered for my art, now it's your turn.
Where
the author is like, I've got all this research, I'm going to make Daniel through, whether you like it or not.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
I always have to go, is this essential, or is this just cool stuff that I find fascinating, but which doesn't help the story? And if it's cool stuff that doesn't advance the story or doesn't reveal character, then it has to go. And it's frustrating, but it means there's stuff you can talk about when you come on podcasts or you're on book festivals. And
but also, I think as well, the more of that stuff you read, even if you're not putting it in your book, I still think it informs the story, even if you're not directly writing it into the story. You kind of bring all of that knowledge into
flavor and the essence.
Exactly.
Feeds into something. Somehow.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's like if you know your characters really well, then you write them compellingly and they feel authentic and true on the page. And even, the fact that what happened to them when they were 12 is not going to appear in the first however many books of your series.
Yeah.
But the fact that informs how the character behaves and operates.
Yeah.
So it's information that's essential for you to know as the writer, but it doesn't mean you need to stick it all in the book, of course. And that judgment, there's the David Mamet quote about the difference between what you withhold and what you vouchsafe. How you parcel out information is the essence of what separates a writer from other people, essentially. So,
Okay.
So, that's number 2.
That's number 2. We are here. This is the most influential book ever, according to David Bishop.
At least for me. For me, at least. And it's this, I've talked about this in other places before, but this is really where it all began for me. It is Criminal Justice and Crime in Late Renaissance Florence, 1537 to 1609. What a pithy title by John K. Brackett. So this is his monograph. He did a PhD about the criminal justice system in late Renaissance Florence. I stumbled upon this in a remaindered bookshop where I bought it for, I think, £1. Sorry, John. Because my eye just caught on it, and I started glancing through it, and my eye particularly stopped on page. It's page 56. Here we go. One sentence, which is he's talking about the criminal justice system in late Renaissance Florence, and he says their organization was roughly comparable to that of a modern police force. And I read that in the book, standing in the shop, and I went, "Oh, I'm buying this. Thank you very much." Because I just went, you could do a police procedural, but it could be set in Renaissance Florence. That sounds amazing. And this is just packed with so much information, court cases, how the police operated, because they had investigating officers, they had constables, they had magistrates, they had lawyers, They had prisons. They had different kind of sentences. The full 9 yards. And it's all in this book. And honestly, I mean, I've scratched the tiniest little morsel out of this in the first 4 Cesare Aldo novels. At the end of book 4, he stops working for the court, so I'm never going to get back to this. But really, this is where the Aldo series began. It took me 20 years from stumbling on this book in a remainder bookshop until I started writing the first Aldo novel, and another 4 years before City of Vengeance was published. So it was nearly a quarter of a century from me picking this up until the series was published. But honestly, you'll be able to see the pages. It's just an endless series of underlinings, scribbles, and I've annotated this book so many times. All little nuggets of information, how the courts operated, how the police operated, how they responded to different kinds of crimes. I could have written 30 Aldo novels just in the first 2 chapters of this, but the character moved on, so it wasn't to be. But this is absolutely number one. Without this, it would be no Aldo series. So this is the essential.
I mean, that's what spin-off characters are for. You can go back to that in the future.
That's very
possibly.
true. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yes, exactly. I mean, Aldo had a sidekick character who was a constable in the first couple of books, Carlo Strocchi, who's gone on and become an officer himself. So theoretically, Strocchi could have his own series as well. Now that Aldo no longer works for the criminal court, we shall see. It will depend who survives book 7 of Aldo, if I get to write book 7.
Excellent.
Brilliant.
Well, thanks very much for that rundown. Do you want to remind us, Carnival of Lies, when is that out?
So that is out on the Thursday, the 26th of June in hardback and audiobook. Wonderful audiobook. I'm so lucky. There's the actor who reads him is called Mark Meadows. His Italian is so much better than mine. Like, he can speak Italian. So therefore it's better than my 2 years stumbling around on Duolingo, learning why lemonade and lemon are 2 different genders. Still don't understand that, I'll be honest. So the audiobook and then the ebook, so those all come out on June 26th. And like I say, Mission Impossible meets Ocean's 11 and Renaissance Venice. It's a big old romp of a book.
Excellent.
Brilliant.
And then the awards are on the 3rd of July, so best of luck with those.
Yes,
well.
keep our fingers crossed for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But thanks very much for joining us today, David. That was great.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we hope you enjoyed that episode. If you did, be sure to hit that thumbs up button and hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode like these ones down here.
And if you want to get in touch, you can do so by finding us on our social media platforms up here, or drop us a comment way down below there.
But otherwise, thanks for listening and join us for the next episode.
See you later.